slate. We got a huge one tonight as opposed to last night, which the 8-gamer though, it felt like a pretty robust slate because there was, as I was sort of saying on the show, is that they think that there's a lot of teams to like, and I think every over hit last night. I'm not sure about that, but I think either every over or 7 of the 8 overs hit last night. It was a big night. I had a really good night. I had doubled up my money basically, which was always nice. I just missed having a big chance and not quite getting the right pieces of some of my stacks. I stacked the teams that I was heaviest were the Braves, Rangers, and Mets. The Mets only scored 7, but the Braves and Rangers scored 11 and 12, and the Rangers were less than 2% on, so they were a good one. Anyway, good stuff from last night. Ready to move on to tonight. Sheets, how was your night? And we'll get into it.
I did not do well. I got obliterated on DraftKings. I thought I was going to be off to a freaking genius start. I had Mets and I had Brady Singer, who was like tracking a no hitter.
He had a no hitter for a while, yeah.
And I'm like, this is easy. And then every other team just ended up doing better, and every other pitcher ended up doing better. The only thing that, ironically, that I did okay was I cashed in the FanDuel Monster, which was the only thing I built live on the stream.
That record is really getting to be pretty impressive.
Yep. So I hung on for the cash out, even though that lineup had Darvish. I had enough because I had Cardinals paired with maybe the Mets, actually. I'm not sure. But whatever, it was good enough to hang on for cashing there. So that's a shout out to the live stream.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm ready to go after today as well. You know what I didn't look at yet? I didn't look at the weather. What weather?
We've got a little bit. So the Pittsburgh and Mets game. So that's your part of the country. Yeah, but that's the one that seems to be the one that's the most risky.
Yeah,
I've
been hearing about the weather here today. So we'll see.
Yeah. So those are the ones. And then Boston at Washington. It's funny because even if I see like if I see an orange somewhere, but I see a yellow orange in Washington,
yeah, that's like red.
That's like worse than an orange to me.
Yeah,
I just don't trust them with anything. We had them twice last year cancel games that were actually green on Ross thing. It's like the only time I've seen that.
All right, so here's the big news. Not the big news is that I finally dipped my toe into the best ball streets.
Oh, how did that go?
I did it. Well, I set up an underdog account. I got like $100, matching bonus, and I figured I would just start doing it. So I've been just doing. I've done already like 6 drafts. I'm just playing that like 5 that Uber lottery with like 3 million for first or something like that, where I'm completely drawing dead. But I figured I would just try. I got a good draft list from another source, and I've just been alternating between doing some auto picks, some just kind of like intelligent stacking and stuff. And I want to do a live stream where Rhodey kind of watches me and kind of walks me through stuff I'm doing wrong, stuff I'm doing whatever. And we'll just and we'll start learning how to do it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually want to get on some of that into some of that as well. So they just run them every now and then, like
They run nonstop. Like you register for one, and it seems like all day, all night. It takes about 10 minutes to fill,
right? And
then it's 30 seconds per pick.
Yeah,
the whole draft is like an hour, if that, not even.
It'll be good to get us prepared for the season, if nothing else. So I want to at least get it. I want to do a show with you and Rhodey if we could try.
Absolutely.
So we'll get that. We'll get that.
But let me share my screen.
Any overalls in the slate before we go into game by game? I don't have like a giant thing because it's a big slate.
I have again, and with the giant slates, there are 2 ways to approach it. Number one is to just spread, right, which is definitely one way to do it, or to try your best to just make a large slate small, take some stands, take some fades, some stands on fades well, and then just kind of roll with it. I kind of like that secondary approach, just try to make and you listen, you're going to be getting rid of some teams that have chances. You're going to get rid of some pitchers that have chances. But, I think that's pretty healthy. So I was able to actually get we'll get to them, get like a good solid like 6 top stacks, and pitching wise, I think it's actually a pretty poor pitching slate in general.
Yeah.
So you're going to be able to pick from a lot of options, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that stood out to me was that there was not one pitcher that at their price I felt at all comfortable with. So we'll get into it. Boston at Washington, the first one on the board. This is, we have a game like the weather is going to dictate some of this for me. So I'm going to say what I always say here. I think Pivetta it would be an interesting tournament play if he wasn't going to be so popular. He's on my list, and I am going to always reserve spots for when I see two guys who actually have very similar type of like range of outcomes, and one of them is going to be like 10 times as owned as the other one. I will take a shot or two on Josiah Gray as of right now. Again, if any weather at all, I'll probably get off this game, so I'll probably not play these guys. But that's what I've got is this a little bit of interest in both pitching, and I have no interest in the hitting whatsoever.
I agree with what you said about Pivetta. He does look like one of the stronger plays, but he's typically a guy, in my opinion, that you don't want to play as chalk. It's kind of like the Andrew Heaney, guys like that. And you also never are exactly sure what you're going to get from Pivetta. You know what I mean? Like maybe this is the day that they announce he's starting, and then he's going to pitch 3 innings. You know what I mean?
Right.
You just don't know. Not to mention the fact that Washington has been particularly stingy this whole season. You put all those things together, and you get the ownership, and you get the rain, and all that. Yeah. It's probably not going to be my top choice. Josiah Gray is part of. I have honestly 10 pitchers. You know what I mean? That I can choose from to kind of screw around with, and he's certainly one of them. But I will say that I do. I have Boston, just so you know, as one of the top 6 stacks, not on DraftKings though, but on FanDuel. There's got to be some kind of pricing difference over there, I suppose. So I figured I'd bring that up. Josiah Gray is obviously, he's volatile, so I have no problem on FanDuel taking a shot at Boston. But I think Pivetta is going to rate out, as long as the weather holds, rate out is going to be one of the better plays. But again, as chalk in a stingy matchup is kind of, I don't think I'm going to get to him as far as, my big Brian, I don't think.
Yeah, and I'll just throw out, as we go through, I like to throw out my little, if there's a value play, Dom Smith is still 2,500, just throwing it out there because, that always seems to be the thing people want to know is the value one. So I'll just throw them out as we go.
Yeah, I have that up here as well. I'm not seeing too much Boston or Washington as the value in my sheet yet. But what do you have, Tom? Oh, Dom Smith at 2,500. Yeah, he looks okay.
Yeah. All right. Next up, you got Pittsburgh Philadelphia at Toronto, right?
Right.
So this is probably 2 of, I guess, the better pitchers on the slate. I don't think I want to play either of them. I hate this matchup for both of them. And if Wheeler was a little cheaper, but 11-6 at Toronto just feels like the wrong thing to do. Maybe that's too narrow-minded. Maybe I'm giving Toronto still too much credit for past results and things like that. But it feels like a lot to go after for, I don't know. It's just, you have a 4-run total. A guy's 11-6 can maybe be the most popular pitcher on the slate. It feels like look, they're both on my list right now because we're going to have to pick some pitchers. But as of right now, I would definitely be below the field on Kikuchi. I will definitely be below the field on Wheeler. And if I was feeling a little frisky and I wanted to do something, I actually think Philadelphia would be an interesting stack here. But I don't think this is the right slate to do it. I just feel like there's too many other spots that might be a little better. So both pitchers definitely viable. I will probably be trying to avoid them. I don't like the matchups.
So far, big mistake. So far, we're in kind of lockstep here. My analysis is almost identical. I have Wheeler and Kikuchi both on my list, but something feels wrong about those prices. And again, I have currently Kikuchi at about 18% and ownership, and Wheeler almost 25%. At that price, I'll probably end up forcing myself off those in the big buy-ins as well. And MME, I'll probably end up getting some just because, but yeah, I wouldn't be stomping over anybody to play these guys at these prices in Toronto.
Exactly. Yeah, that's same page. All right, why don't you start off the Mets game, because we don't know about this game for sure yet, and I think the pitching that we would have considered here, I just think the weather looks a little too scary probably. But David Peterson would. I guess that's just the one thing I would say is David Peterson certainly seems like he would be a value guy that we could consider.
Yeah, if in fact this weather holds, I would have thought that both offenses would show up as a little bit better. I'm just not seeing it though, at least not now. And Peterson, listen, if I was a big enough man yesterday to say that I could play freaking Carlos Carrasco, then I can certainly get over my David Peterson biases as well, and include him as a reasonable value, because at least Peterson can actually get people out sometimes, as opposed to Carrasco who can't. Right. So I do have Peterson. Hey, Carrasco, man, he had like an all-time high for me. I think he had like 8 fantasy points last night. That was pretty strong.
The same amount as Mikolas.
He almost got the win, Carrasco, I think.
I know. Well, he only ended up pitching 3 innings.
I know, that's the problem. Yeah. Anyway, so I mean, listen. I mean, these guys. Listen, Carrasco. At least I'm trying to think of how there's such a lack of pitching that they keep guys like Wainwright pitching. And you know that? Did you even see? We even talked about this. That Dallas Keuchel's been pitching again.
Yeah. No, we stacked against him last week. The crazy thing is, he comes back, and I remember I played Philly against them, and Philly was like completely unowned. They scored like 11 runs. I don't know how in a small slate they were unowned against that guy.
Well, I was going over it in my because I did that one solo. I'm like, well, obviously everybody's going to play Philly because they're people just going to go after Keuchel, and nobody played them. It was pretty funny.
It was so weird.
So I like Peterson a little bit, and none of the hitting.
So if the game plays, Peterson and I think the Mets are viable enough to make a stack out of. You're going to get Mark Vientos probably a little bit higher, and look, it's nothing exciting. He's been terrible. But he's 2.4K because of it. Alonso has obviously found himself and is probably one of the best one-offs if you had to pick one on the slate. If you had to bet on somebody to home run today, I think he's probably as likely as anybody. So I'm not going to write the Mets off. Maybe more of a mini stack for me because their offense is not very good or deep. But then again, Jonathan Arias, who was the one guy I didn't play from the Mets last night, he had a home run. So I could see going after Fulter and a Pittsburgh bullpen that's been better than expected. But I just have a mild interest in the Mets, and there is some wind blowing in from center, so certainly not a priority for me by any means. But I will say that Pete Alonso and makes me want to just play the stack a little bit. I see Pete Alonso against the lefty. My eyes light up, but that's pretty much it for me in this one. And I also, again, if it was yesterday's slate, I would be talking about stacking up Pittsburgh. It just doesn't feel like the right slate to get the most points out of them tonight. So
two things. As we go to New York, Yankees, Atlanta. Two things I forgot to talk to you about that came out of the afternoon chat. One was there was a guy in there who was like kind of saying that he could help with panels and like the look and feel of the YouTube page and stuff. I'm like, yeah, sure, send me an email. So he's gonna email me. He probably did yesterday. I just haven't checked. And the other thing I got from this chat is this guy Ryan Nelson. I don't know if he was like, he came in and he made a nasty comment. I don't know if this is the same guy that makes nasty comments. Didn't seem like he normally was, but he said something like, "Oh, so you still have disdain for people who are not as smart as you?" Just kind of like right out of the gate. And I'm like,
not even me.
But what's that? I don't know. But I was just me in the chat. Like it was just me doing afternoon. You think he was just like, and then I'm like, dude, you're talking to the wrong one. That's for sure. I mean, and then he didn't say anything else. And then he came in later in the chat. He says, "Hey, what's your favorite sports betting play?" So I figured he was just like, I don't know. There's saying, "Oh, you know what? I don't really like anything, but let me just look." And I pulled up a sports betting thing, and I came up with Atlanta -1.5, minus 105 for $180. So because Ryan Nelson came on in there,
nice.
So I'm 180 richer. So if he's in there, hey, props to you for getting me juiced up to come up with something. Nonetheless, Yankees against Severino. I mean, Carrasco, Peterson, Flexen, Severino. I mean, meanwhile, Flexen wasn't bad, but Severino hasn't gotten anybody out all season either. And
except for when he got everybody out at the same. No, he didn't. You're right. He hasn't. Yeah,
he didn't let anybody out. I mean,
I'm mixing him up for a second with what's his name, the other pitcher.
Oh, Termon, right?
Yeah, who also hadn't been getting many people.
April 1st, I don't think Severino's got a single batter out, and he's got the wrong matchup to bring that kind of form. You know what I mean? Let's just say that. So, obviously, these Atlanta guys, they're under 7K. You could probably play. I don't know. It's tough to play them, but it's if you can get any of them in, go for it. I'm not getting to any of the pitching here. And I will say that as a secondary stack option, I think the Yankees are not bad. So that's where I'll leave that. So sort of I would imagine like a no-own Yankees. I would guess.
Yeah.
And obviously Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta. I mean, I'm gonna, even against the Yankees and the bullpen and the fact that Severino at one point was a really good pitcher. I don't think there's any way I can just avoid Atlanta today. So I definitely have Atlanta as one of the priorities for me. And I agree with you about I'm actually a little bit surprised the Yankees total's as low as it is. For what it's worth, guys, it's 83 degrees with 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing out to left center in Atlanta. That's a pretty good hitting condition against Bryce Elder, who started the season strong and has, outside of one start, has just been pretty awful for over a month now. Maybe it's not the worst idea to get some Yankee exposure. I don't think I want to make like a full stack or anything, but maybe I can reconsider it. They're cheap enough. You've got, obviously the two power bats that are expensive and everybody else is cheap. Even Stanton is cheap for Stanton. I can get behind the Yankees. So I don't mind, especially a Yankees mini stack. Maybe you do like a Bowers, Judge, Stanton or something like that. And I think you could fit it in or throw Bader in there instead. I don't know. I'm okay with that. And I do have Atlanta as one of the priorities. So Yankees are more of a mini stack for me. All right. Moving on. What do we have next for you on your
I have Detroit, Minnesota. Well, what's interesting about this slate is that no game is at the same time.
That's awesome. I love the
check this out, but it's like 2-minute staggers.
This is the way it should be. I think I've always felt this way about all these sports. Make them like a minute or two different,
For content purposes.
Well, no, but for a lot of things. But because when you're watching them, like especially in the basketball, and I get really into them, like I don't like that they're all at the same point at the same time. I want them to be a little bit different. You know what I mean? I don't want them both. And then it usually works out a little different.
What would you think if they did that in football?
I would love it if they did it in football.
That'd be kind of cool, right?
I would love that. Yeah, because football
like
actually does that.
1 o'clock right through 4. I mean, like 1, 1:10, 1:20, 1:30, just right through there.
I would love it.
That's pretty cool, actually.
That would be fun.
That's so bad.
One day, maybe.
So here's the thing. DraftKings is pretty good, man. At first I'm like, okay, cool. We get to play Bailey Ober against Detroit. I'm like 10-2. Ooh, that's tough. You know what I mean? It's not that. So I do have him as as somebody in play. Let me see what his at least early projected ownership is. 15%. I mean, so no bargains here if you want to know the truth. I mean, he's like in play, but certainly doesn't stand out as any particularly great value or great ownership or anything like that. As far as the hitting, yeah, Minnesota actually rates as good value here. So I would consider them probably in play, but still we haven't even gotten to like my top plays yet. Except for Atlanta, obviously, but we'll get to them, I guess. But yeah, so I guess Ober just kind of like a reasonable with the field play, and maybe some Minnesota.
Yeah, I have Ober on my list. Like I really can't believe how little I like the pitching today. So just for what it's worth, I have Ober on my list. I also, wouldn't have any problem if you wanted to play Akil Baddoo if he leads off at 2,800 as a good value play. But I mostly have the Twins as I have some interest. I just really like, it's just not a pretty lineup. They are super cheap. And even if you're not using them as a full stack, they certainly make sense as a complementary stack. So I have Minnesota as one of the teams that I'll focus on, but preferably would be for my 3-man or 2-man or something like that. Kepler, 3,300 batting cleanup. They're all value. I mean, Julian at 3,100. Even Polanco's 44. That's reasonable enough. Matt Wallner should be in there at 2.4K. They're cheap enough. It's not a lineup that I feel great about scoring the most runs. But it is good hitting weather in Minnesota. It is Detroit. It's Fado, and it's a bad bullpen. So they're gonna have to stay on my list for right now, at least. All right. Next up, Oakland and St. Louis.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with this. Yeah. So I think this is what's going to end up happening. I think that Dakota Hudson's going to end up being the most popular pitcher on the slate. Yeah. He rates a good point per dollar play. It's a good matchup. And it lets you get to Atlanta and Zona and Dodgers and whatever else you want, right? So Dakota Hudson rates for me as alongside with Pivetta as the top point per dollar play on the slate. And to go along with that, I have St. Louis as one of my top stacks as well. So St. Louis on both sites, hitting wise, and Dakota Hudson pitching wise.
Yeah, I'm in on that's the one thing that sort of stood out to me was that Dakota Hudson, which means that I think you're right. I think that that's what's going to happen is that he ends up becoming either the most popular or one of the most popular players on the slate.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that you have to do this on giant slates. I've made that really clear in the past, but there would certainly be nothing wrong with like getting a mini stack of Oakland, by the way. Like Jordan Diaz is 2,600, Seth Brown 38. Geloff, Bleday, Rooker, all those guys I like enough. I don't think like Hudson is so not a sure thing that even though it's Oakland, I just wanted to think about the other side of it. I also like the Cardinals a lot, but that feels like every time I say that out loud, it feels wrong because they basically never get there, but or rarely get there. But I have the Cardinals as one of the top stacks. I think that
I like the lefties and the switch hitters like Nootbaar and Edman, and along with Goldschmidt.
Yeah, there's some concern about that with them potentially bringing in, but realistically, when you're surrounded by Goldschmidt and Arenado, who are so much better against lefties, why would you bring in a lefty to face those guys who are
right
on either side? So it's harder for them to get pinch hit for than I think it would be if it was if we didn't have those guys in the middle of the order. So. I'm high on St. Louis today. Again, I might have to reconsider that just because I feel like if there's a team that's let me down more than St. Louis this year, I don't know who they are. All right. Chicago. We have wind blowing in Chicago at 11 miles an hour from left field. That's got to make Kyle Hendricks in play for me. And
hang on. I got Angels, Texas first, if you don't mind.
Oh no, I messed up. There were these two, the first two at the same time, and of course they don't have them in order. All right.
Because I would like to make an announcement, about this game. The announcement I would like to make is that Jordan Montgomery is $11,000. I just thought that I would mention that. It doesn't seem too long ago that we were playing him at like $7K.
Yeah, maybe even less.
Now, listen, he's been better since since the trade. And, it's funny. I look at him on the list and he's like, kind of looks okay. There is just no way on the face of this earth that I'm playing Jordan Montgomery at 11,000. I just can't do it. Giolito, at 10-7, I just, again, this is a tough slate. I just don't think this is what I'm going to do. I just don't think I'm going to pay up for this stuff. What are you gonna? You play Giolito, that it's 7-0 Texas after the first inning. You know what I mean? Like, and I think Texas is listen, as usual, they're expensive, but as you saw last night, they could just put up numbers. So I think Texas is going to be again like 0-owned, and I think that they're in play. They're not one of my top 6, but how can you avoid it against a guy who gives up a lot of stuff? So. I'm probably going to be off of both pitchers, and I'll probably end up with a little splash of Texas.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to play the pitchers either. Like they're on a very long list of guys to consider. It is interesting though, because I do think if you're going to play one of these guys, you want to try to go the upside route. And even though Giolito has so many downside games, I think if there was one of these guys at these prices, you'd want to be able to get 25 or more. I think that Giolito has the better chance of doing that. Well, I think Montgomery is going to be around 20 most of the time. Like I know that sounds like a stupid thing, but I just think he's got a little more upside and he's going to be much lower owned. I also think, like you said, it wouldn't surprise me if Texas went off. I don't think I can get to a Texas stack because it's not like I'm not just going to go and say, okay, Giolito's terrible. He's just not. Like he's streaky, and I don't want to stack a team that costs this much. I don't know. It just feels like they're too much. And on the Angels side, I just can't find a bat that I really like. So I'm kind of just off this game in general right now, but as always, you can certainly play Texas. I just didn't find it in my builds today.
So you were starting with the Cubs White Sox, so you can continue with that.
Yeah, I'll go with it real quick. So I think Kyle Hendricks is another one that as of right now, when you factor in price and everything, I have as one of the better plays on the slate. And it's mostly, look, you have the wind blowing in Chicago. His bad starts lately. He had a shaky start. Not even like it was shaky against St. Louis, but it was a lot of BABIP stuff. A lot of BABIP stuff against Atlanta, which is a tough team to play, obviously, as we know. So mostly, other than that, he's been a little bit better. Obviously, you lose some strikeout upside, but you're playing the White Sox, so you get a little bit of value in the fact that it's a pretty inept offense. I'm okay with taking shots with Hendricks is the long and short of it. The White Sox actually have one of the lower totals on the slate today, and as does the A's, by the way. So Hendricks and Hudson certainly seem like they're going to make some pairings for me today. And I'm not. I don't like playing the wind games where it's blowing in. If it's still blowing in later, I'm probably not going to do anything offensively. If the wind changes and evens out or goes across the field, I will just stack up the Cubs, no problem. But with the wind blowing in at 10 plus miles an hour in Wrigley, I just don't like stacking those games personally.
I'll tell you, I'll go a step further. I'll throw Toussaint in the mix also.
Okay.
But definitely Hendricks is the better play. He's got, the White Sox are worse than the Cubs, and it's just the way it is, as far as hitting goes. But Toussaint's been pretty stingy, man. He's been fighting this year, and I think builds like Hudson, Hendricks, Toussaint, just pray for 15 fantasy points. You know what I mean? I think that's probably the order of the day. And as long as wind's blowing in, I'm kind of into that. Because when I'm looking at this, I did have the Cubs as kind of like a secondary stack, and I even had like outskirts like White Sox. But listen, I don't need a 100-game slate to be fighting Wrigley wins. So I will. I definitely think Hendricks is in play, and again, I will throw in Toussaint into the dumpster also.
Yeah, and I'm just going to remind everybody, this is, the game doesn't start for like 9 hours, and people have to realize like the Cubs, that wind will change there. Like it changes directions a lot. So if it just evens out, the Cubs would maybe be one of my favorite stacks. And I know Toussaint's been a little whatever. I like this Cubs offense. I like getting them when I can, and just disappointed to be a little bit today to see the wind blowing in because I wanted to stack them. All right. So you want to start off Seattle and KC?
You weren't around. You were away for the Hancock debut, I think. He was 4K. He was debated throughout the industry. He ended up being not very popular, but not being whatever. And he was exactly what people either hoped for or thought when they played him at 4K. He got like 12 fantasy points. He listen. It was a tough matchup to make your debut, coming straight from AA ball to go play the Padres. He had walk issues, which was not good to see, and he didn't exactly like blow people away, So he gets a little bit of an easier matchup against Kansas City. Again, I'm going to throw him in the mix, but I think I'm more inclined to go the other way and play KC against him. But it's definitely both the things are certainly in play, and then. You have what's rating as usual. One of the top stacks on the board is whoever Jordan Lyles is pitching against. So in this day and age, it's against Seattle. But one thing I will say, okay, and I, listen, I played Brady Singer last night, and when I played the Seattle when I won like the tournament a week and a half ago or whatever.
Yeah,
I like playing Seattle against the lefties. Okay, I like playing the righties against them. I don't like playing Seattle against righties, and I like pitching righties against them. Now, I don't know if Jordan Lyles is even worthy of like that type of analysis, but Seattle's going to come in somehow as like super popular somehow. They always play guys against Jordan Lyles, and if they end up being that popular, I don't think it's like that much of a lock. Because I just prefer playing Seattle against the lefties, but they are rating to be like a very, very good stack for me. So in summary, I think that this game, you're going to need to figure out what you want to do because Seattle's going to rate well. Hancock is cheap enough that you have to consider him. And in Kansas City, as always, is going to look very cheap.
Yeah, Bobby Witt, shout out to him for having I think it was the 4th fastest inside the park home run that they've ever recorded yesterday.
I don't like these. I don't like these inside the park. I don't like these plays where it goes off the outfielder's mitt and they give him credit for a hit. I don't like any of it. But anyway.
It's still hard to hit it inside the park home run just in terms of speed alone.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. He was blasting around.
14 seconds is pretty crazy to get around the bases. So anyway, but I like Hancock here just because of the price, and it's sort of the theme of the day. And as much as like I can certainly see the argument for playing the Royals. But I also think that part of the reason we keep liking these guys is because they're playing the Royals.
Right. Yep.
So it's I'm on the Seattle and Hancock side of things, but I also will have Jordan Lyles on my list just because it's a long list, and I don't feel great about any of these guys. So I am going to, but I do have Hancock as potentially like a preferred. Like I might even have him right in that. It might be he, Hudson, and Hendricks as my three favorite that we've talked about so far.
Okay.
And you do have the really cheap bats for Seattle, and I don't think because of the nature of the slate they're going to be especially high owned. One thing I want to point out is like a lot of the games we've played this year in Kansas City have been like 90 degrees, 100 degrees. This is 74 degrees with the wind blowing in a little bit. Just worth noting because I do think that makes a difference. And yeah, so I can see all the as you always say, all the problems of this game. Every part of it makes some sense to me. But I'm leaning more on the Seattle and the Hancock side. I do think the value for some of the KC bats like Melendez, Massey in there, like you have some value mixed with two really good hitters, Perez and Witt. And so the stack kind of naturally makes a little bit of sense. So I'd certainly get it. I'm definitely not going to cross off KC, but I'm definitely more on the Seattle Hancock side of it. All right. Next up, we have Arizona. Which one do you have first?
Arizona, Colorado.
Oh my God, we actually were. All right, so why don't you jump in on this one and start it off?
So Arizona, alongside of Atlanta, is rating to be the top projected team on the slate. They're also going to be continuing to be high owned. They disappointed last night, and they're still going to look good today. So again, don't play them with chalk, but you want to do something like, Hendricks, Hudson, maybe. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's going to be a little more popular than I think. But just make sure that you play Arizona. Either, like you say, don't play the popular 5-man. By the way, like if you look at like who scored even fantasy points for Arizona, even the 4 runs, like I saw a lot of 5-man Arizona stacks with like zeros. The people who actually scored the fantasy points were not the people that anybody played. Anyway, they're going to look good. I'm certainly not getting to any of the pitching, and I'm not getting to Colorado.
So I actually think that and maybe it went a little bit overlooked, but Charlie Blackmon is still 3,300 in Colorado and he just came back. So I will say that he's like a guy who I think makes for a decent one-off, even though his power and speed is not the same as it used to be. 3,300, it just seems a little too cheap, assuming that he does lead off again against the lefty, which he usually does. So Arizona is basically going to have a bullpen game. And I think both of these offenses are completely viable. It's really hot in Colorado. It's like 90 degrees. And I really hate that I like Arizona as much as I do today. I'm just going to have to force myself to not click the 5-man button. I just think maybe if I play the $153 thing or something like that, then I could play a full 5-man stack because at least I then have the same amount of entries as everybody else. And there are plenty of ways to get creative at different spots or pitcher or whatever. But I do have Arizona as a team that I'm certainly considering how to do it, but I'm probably going to try and stick to like a lot of 3-mans. Maybe I'll play them as a 4-4 some places. On the Colorado side, I just think that they're a little bit better than maybe they're getting credit for here. I think this is, it's a bullpen game. I don't feel terribly risky about a lot of the guys for pinch hits. There might be 1 or 2 in there, but not terribly worried about it. We'll see what happens with Profar. He's questionable. But I kind of like the idea of getting to some pieces of Colorado. So I have both these teams rated as good mini stacks. Colorado because I don't love their lineup, and Arizona because they're going to be too popular. So Colorado mini, I'm going to put in there. All right. Next up, what do we got?
We have Baltimore, San Diego.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry. I don't know what's up with me. That was completely user error. Do you want to start this one off? Sorry about that, Shoots.
Yeah. So Waka at 9,800 is just too much. I'm just not going to do that. Flaherty, I mean, this is what I expected like Jordan Montgomery to be. You know what I mean? Like 2 guys with the DraftKings still have the St. Louis Cardinal cap on, and both of them. This is what I think of the Montgomery should be. I think he should be 8,400. So, I think Flaherty is certainly in the mix, not the greatest matchup in the world, but he's, he can throw good games sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I'll throw him in there. With respect to the hitting, no, I'm just not quite getting any of them as some of my top stacks. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, no interest really in the hitting, no real interest in the pitching. Flaherty's on my list, but not like a guy who I'm happy about like having there. I don't feel great about anything. If I had to pick anything, I would probably be interested in San Diego's bats, but like really just maybe a little bit of Flaherty at most, and that's pretty much it for me. All right, then we get Tampa Bay, San Francisco.
Yeah. So what happened? Was Sean Manaea supposed to pitch yesterday?
It was a possibility, but that's what you. It's funny because I literally turned down the crunch time on Roto Grinders right after we got off, and they were literally having this conversation about Manaea has a really good chance to not pitch at all. But if he does pitch, he might be one of the better players on the slate. Like,
I had a couple of lineups with him actually.
Yeah, and it's just that the San Francisco thing we talked about it a little bit when we were on.
Yeah,
but
I don't have anything here.
I don't know if he's pitching tonight either. But.
Yeah, in any case, I don't really have anything from either team.
Yeah, if you told me Manaea's a straight starter, I would definitely have some interest in Manaea, just because you can. Is it maybe like? I don't think it's that crazy to play like Zach. Like we have a lot of really cheap guys who just sort of are in similar things, and I think Zach Little will be the lowest owned of all of them. San Francisco's a really good matchup. I'm not going to cross them off of the list yet, but again, nothing inspiring here for me on either side. You mentioned you had some Rays stacks last night, and I really liked that, even though I didn't get to it. They went off.
Yeah.
Depending on who's actually pitching tonight, maybe going back to them is not the worst idea, but probably just going to be mostly off this game with maybe a tiny bit of Zach Little. That's pretty much it for me.
All right, so the last game, I guess I'll start off. I'm not getting to any of the pitching here, but I'm getting to the Dodgers on FanDuel. That's where I have, and it's not because they're any particular value or anything. I imagine that they're probably expensive, but I'm getting to the Dodgers on FanDuel. Hauser. This is complete bias, but I remember winning a tournament stacking against Hauser before, and I like playing Dodgers against righties, and I don't think people are going to play them. So all that leads to I think the Dodgers are pretty good. Listen, maybe I can even play them on DraftKings. They don't show up for me yet, but this is a spot I might just kind of play. I don't know. Listen, Atlanta and Arizona are incredibly obvious, right? And sure, Seattle's going to look good. St. Louis, I think, is going to look good. But if I want to screw around, I have no problem with just like rooting against everybody and just playing the Dodgers tonight. Yeah,
I'm in on the Dodgers. I actually do have them as a priority, and
on DraftKings as well. Okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you why though. First of all, Hauser is a very adequate pitcher who will occasionally have good games, but gives up a decent amount of hard contact. Don't love that he doesn't walk. I mean, he doesn't have like a low walk rate, but it's not like crazy high. The thing I like about this game too, though, is it's 81 like this will be the hottest evening game I think this season so far in LA. It's 81 degrees with 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing out to right center, and you just give me any average. Like I said yesterday with Atlanta, like you give me an average pitcher against these teams, I'm gonna just side with the offenses almost all the time. Sure, JD Martinez is not in the lineup, but maybe they're a little less effective. All the Dodgers are doing right now is beating the hell out of everybody. They've been the best team in baseball lately. I am going to play the Dodgers, and I am going to play Bobby Miller. I don't care what I just don't with these young guys. And I mentioned it about Grayson Rodriguez last time. Now it's very different when you're paying $6,400 and $9,300 for somebody. But Bobby Miller has a ceiling. I promise you that. This team there's nothing that's all that inspiring about the Milwaukee offense, as I point out sort of over and over again. If Bobby Miller gets it going, it wouldn't even surprise me if he's the highest scoring player. And I just feel like a little bit better about getting to him than paying $2,500 more for guys who I have rated very similarly to him. So I actually think Bobby Miller might be what I do tonight. And my pitching is going to be very, very strange, but I think that's what you're going to hear from everybody, unless we get like some pitching changes or something. Because I do have Miller as a guy who I'm going to prioritize at sub 10% ownership. I'm going to play some Hancock. I'm going to play Hendricks. I'm going to play Hudson. Those are the four guys I know I'm playing. Everybody else we talked about is basically just up in the air for me. And I like I said, I like the Dodgers, Atlanta. I like St. Louis and Seattle for full stacks, and then I like Arizona and Colorado as pieces for fillers. Specifically, those pieces in that Arizona game would be the power bats, obviously, and then on the Colorado side, well, power bats, which is like everybody for Arizona. But the Blackman, McMahon, Diaz, Brendan Rodgers for Colorado, I'll probably be using them to fill out the St. Louis, Seattle, Atlanta, and LA.
What have the Dodgers been doing with respect to starters against these righties? Have they been playing both Peralta and Hayward, or what have they been doing?
It's been a mix lately. So my guess is that because JD is out, it probably will be. It's really weird. Like Ahmed Rosario bats cleanup one day and then he's batting ninth the next day. It's a very strange thing, but I kind of get what they're doing. But I think you're going to see Outman, Hayward, and Peralta
all three of them. Okay.
I wouldn't be shocked if anything else, if something else was different. They can always mix it up and do something.
And is there any is one even more likely than the other to be subbed for between Peralta and Hayward? Or are they both the same pretty much?
More likely Hayward, okay. But again, it sort of depends on when it comes up in the order. But it is usually it's Hayward is almost never going to bat against the lefty. Peralta sometimes will. Okay. And Outman is the one that's least likely to get pinch hit for. But again, doesn't mean that it's not possible. They may do it. Although they're a little bit in cruise mode. That's the one thing I don't like about the Bobby Miller thing that I'm worried about. They now have a 9-game. That's crazy, right? Like they were in second place not long ago, and they have a 9-game lead in the division now. I guess that's what happens when you win like 20 out of 23 or something. But they're not probably going to overextend things. They don't really need to going forward. You know what I mean? So that's one thing to consider for the Dodgers, that maybe, and because of it, in one way it hurts your pitchers, in one way it helps some of your hitters because you're less likely to always, have the pinch hitting coming in when you're not as desperate to, when you're up by 5 runs and you got the bases loaded with 1 out. Maybe you let the guy stay in with the lefty spot this time of the year rather than when you're in a 1-game playoff race, you're probably going to be pinch hitting there every day.
I mean, like you play like what's on my board here. You play like Hudson Hancock or something like that. You could literally just load up, you know what I mean? Like you play Freeman, Betts, and Muncy with impunity, and if you threw it out in Peralta, for example, like you still have like infinite money, You could put in Dodge, you could put in Braves people in there if you want. You could put some Texas people in there if you want. I mean, you got to hold the line with these pitchers. That's all, And you have 2 good. Just use these 2 as examples. I mean, you have 2 good matchups, and their range of outcomes between like 7 and like 20 somewhere. You know what I mean? So just don't have reasonable expectations for pitching's performance, and just hopefully the hitting goes off for you.
Yep, that's sort of going to be my theme. And if any pitcher puts up like 35 tonight, I'm probably going to be in trouble because as of right now, I'm not prioritizing those guys.
Well, you say that, but then you think about it. If someone's going to play like Wheeler and who else would it even be? Like
it would be Ober probably.
Let's say they did that. I mean, what stacks am I going to be afraid of? You know what I mean? Like if Wheeler does get 30 and Ober even gets 30, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm sitting there with he's got 60 fantasy points and like a Royals stack, right?
Yeah.
Or like a Pittsburgh stack, and we're sitting
or Seattle.
And we're right, that's true. And we're sitting here with 30 points and like all the Braves and Dodgers. I don't know. I'm not sure.
No, you're right. That's totally fair. We've seen it happen so many times. I mean, last night I had plenty of the nuts with Max Scherzer who went nuts, but my best lineups were almost all the Grayson Rodriguez and Joe Schmo. You know what I mean? It was the guys who combined for as many points as Scherzer had got alone. It worked out for me.
I'll tell you, it's funny tracking that Kansas City game here from last night. So what's his name was like cruising through a no-hitter, right? He's going to the 7th, right?
Yeah.
First he gives up a single. I'm like, okay, get him out. We know what's going to happen next, right? But then they left him in for another bat. He only pitched like 70 pitches or something.
Yeah, he had no pitches. Yeah.
So then he gives up another thing. So it's 1st and 2nd, and they pull him out. I'm like, okay, no problem. Okay, you don't get the complete game shutout. You don't go whatever, but whatever. Then some dude comes in and gives up a 3-run homer.
Yeah.
So that's 2 runs that gets credited against him.
Right.
Like no problem. At least he'll get the win. And then the whole game blows up.
Crazy. Yeah.
Get that. So it's like baseball.
No, it's annoying. But all right, guys, we'll be good for live at 6.
Wait. Hold on. What's going to be? We're going to do this again. What's your sports Or you're going to put your bet of the day up?
Oh, I haven't figured out what my favorite one is yet. It wasn't like a one that jumped out to me today more than others, to be honest with you. I really liked the overs yesterday, but I didn't actually pull the trigger and bet any of them. Today, I don't have like a decided game that really stood out, but I'll post my stuff a little bit later.
Oh no, I'm going to do one.
You're going to do a bet here. You got one.
All right, that one looks okay. All right, I'm gonna do an extra bonus because this one is not gonna be on the main slate, I don't think. Okay, so we are going to go with the Reds with Graham Ashcraft -110, just straight money line against Logan Allen and the Cleveland Cavaliers or whatever they're called.
The Cleveland car, man. That Cleveland, it's so hard now to get the old names out of my head.
So that's where we are in.
I like that. All right. Yeah, it's one game obviously I didn't really think about today because it's earlier, but yeah, exactly. I like that. Definitely. All right, guys. Well, good luck tonight, and I'll post my content and get everything back up on the site. And I've been doing most of my stuff. Just real quick FYI for everybody, I've been just posting directly in the premium channel because I've been sort of like in and out a lot the last few days, but I'll get stuff back on the site, and we'll also be posting in the premium channel when it's happening, when I've updated it. So keep an eye out for that. Please like and subscribe to the videos, and yeah, we'll see you guys later on.
Wait, can I give you one more?
Yeah,
I want to give one more. So Johnny Cueto, I saw him pitch. I think it was his first time, but he was his first time against the team he had played before or something, and he was doing pretty well. And then he was just throwing up frickin' meatballs. So I'd like to do something. I was about to say I just want the Astros. I'll lay 1.5 plus the 130. Before I do that, I just want to see if I could do something really ridiculous, like somebody to get a home run or something for Houston. Let me just see if anybody from Houston looks good enough.
Jordan Alvarez.
That's batter props, so it's going to be over. Yeah, Alvarez, but that's like chalk. What do you think Tucker's going to be? Only plus 425. 425. That's rough business, man.
Well, actually, wait, 425 for Tucker? That's not that crazy. That's actually
how about Altuve plus 600?
He just doesn't hit him anymore. But yeah, I mean, maybe he does tonight. That's the weird part about this whole lineup, though. Like, I mean, outside of Tucker, and you really don't have the same power that we used to see from the others.
Yeah, you know what? We're gonna do it. We're gonna play Tucker plus 425.
I think it's a pretty good number, actually,
for a home run. All right, we're in.
Yeah,
we're in.
All right. Well, good luck on your bets. Good luck tonight, everybody, and we'll see you guys at 6 Eastern.
Okay.